E3 is often a show full of promise, and empty promises. The true test of this has been the PlayStation 3. It was debuted at E3 05 with a series of amazing trailers and plenty of questions as to their authenticity. As game after game is released, it's becoming apparent that some of the footage was a bit optimistic. Nowhere is this more clear than with MotorStorm, an off-road racer that has fallen short of expectations from a technical perspective. Can its gameplay save the day, or does it end up with mud in its grill? I am the world before I am a man. Games that come out in a console's infancy are often bereft of modes and features, but the lack of content in MotorStorm is downright criminal. There are just 2 modes to speak of. That's right, just 2. And if you don't have a broadband connection, there's just 1. This mode is aptly titled Play. Here you go through a series of races dubbed tickets. As you cross the finish line in a predetermined position, you move on to the next race. Most of the races determine which vehicles you can pilot and have you swapping paint with the same exact vehicle class. The exception is the MotorStorm events, where you'll be banging it out with vehicles from every class. The Play mode can wear on and on. The instruction manual talks about a MotorStorm festival full of racing, anarchy, and raucous music, but you only get glimpses of the festival during menu screens. There are no spectators around the track, no stage for the bands, nothing. You unlock new vehicles every once in a while, but it really only amounts to new body kits and color combinations. It quickly becomes a grind, to say the least. Speaking of vehicles, there are 7 different classes, and each one has its strengths and weaknesses. The MX bikes and ATVs are hard to handle, yet accelerate very quickly. Get them in the mud, and they'll slow down to a crawl. Buggies and rally cars can't get up to speed as quickly, but they have a little more traction and are easier to steer. The racing trucks and mud pluggers are heavy vehicles with a lot of horsepower that are effective in just about any condition. The final class is called Big Rigs. These massive machines can plow through the mud without losing much steam, but if you're stopped for any reason, getting back up to speed can take forever. There are just 8 different courses included in MotorStorm, and each follows a similar desert gulch theme. It becomes a bit redundant after a while, despite the fact that each course has a variety of branching paths. Then again, this is an off-road racer, so the setting is a bit restricted. Still, it would have been nice to careen through a forest, dodging trees and other hazards along the way. While the single-player mode is limited and not all that fun, thankfully you can take the game online and race against 11 other competitors. This is an important feature because there's no split-screen multiplayer racing whatsoever. Online, the host for each race can set the track, number of laps, available vehicle classes, and the ambiance. The only catch is that some tracks only allow particular vehicle classes. While we generally cut launch games a little bit of slack as developers get up to speed with the new hardware, the lack of modes and options in MotorStorm is really hard to overlook. With just 1 single-player option and no split-screen multiplayer races, those without a broadband connection to race online will find MotorStorm gets repetitive rather quickly. While MotorStorm is thin on content, one area where it has delivered is in the gameplay. The physics at work here are phenomenal. No matter what vehicle you've chosen, each bump, bog, and rut will jostle it around in about as realistic a fashion as possible. The vehicles also react to each surface type with startling accuracy. If you're plowing through mud, the steering becomes a bit sluggish, and the tires will break free, allowing you to power slide. If you're on hard-packed dirt, your top speed will be incredible, but you'll have to watch the bumps or you'll get tossed off course. This ties heavily into race strategy as well. If you're on an ATV or motorcycle, it's best to avoid the routes with a lot of mud, even if the hard-packed route is a little longer. Conversely, if you're driving a big rig, you'll want to take the shortest route no matter what, because mud has little effect on its speed or handling. For all the vehicle classes in between, you'll have to make that choice dependent upon your skill. Ultimately, success is highly reliant upon memorizing each branching path and the terrain. Overall, things are pretty balanced. If you're good enough, you can win with just about any vehicle class against any other class. The one exception to this rule is online, where there's no computer assistant balancing. Here, it can be extremely difficult to win against stiff competition with the heavier vehicles. Of course, the host can always limit the vehicle types to correct this. Behind the wheel, things are incredibly simple, yet plenty deep. You have gas, brake, turbo, and that's about it. The turbo is regulated by the vehicle's temperature. Let it get too hot, and it'll explode in a blaze of mud-splattered glory. drive through the mud, or catch some air and it'll cool. This adds a good deal of strategy to the races, as you'll be looking for big jumps on the final lap to make sure you have enough turbo to blast to the finish line, or if you have a big lead, looking for the safest route to make sure you don't crash. The latter is incredibly important, especially when racing against the computer. No matter how fast you whip around the courses, there always seems to be a glut of vehicles on your tail. Make one mistake, and suddenly you go from having the race of your life to finishing in the middle of the pack. We finished in first place and sixth place with the same exact time, which shows that there's a good bit of rubber banding going on. The good news is that the controls are incredibly accurate, and crashing is the result of driver error most of the time. One gripe is that vehicles can get caught up on the smallest of rocks, leaving you with the awkward choice of resetting on the track or trying to get out of the jam. Another complaint has to do with the crashes. As incredible as they look, with parts flinging in every direction, they can take forever to complete, and it's totally random as to whether you'll be set up or completely screwed by the time you make it back to the race. Despite the complaints, once you get a handle on MotorStorm's gameplay, it's one of those games where you can get completely in the zone, anticipating each bump and rut while letting off the turbo for those moments of airborne bliss. With its lack of modes and options, MotorStorm is really a tech demo for the PlayStation 3. While it's fallen a bit short of its target render, there's no denying that it's one of the most gorgeous racing games ever. The physics and handling are on point, but you'll be utilizing them across just 8 tracks. MotorStorm will undoubtedly see some downloadable updates in the coming months, but we're forced to review what comes on the disc, and unfortunately, it's not a whole lot. Still, if you're starved for some new experiences in your PlayStation 3, give it a rent, and see if you're still hungry for more after a few days of mudslinging.